A team of young people behind the production of CoronaVac, a Chinese-made vaccine to fight COVID-19, has just won the May 4th medal, a prestigious national award in China for youths. The award is named after the May 4th movement in 1919, where young students inspired people from all walks of life to join them in the fight against imperialism and feudalism. How relevant is the May 4th spirit 101 years later? What has inspired the young men and women of this team to devote themselves in the fight against COVID-19? Welcome to a special edition of The Point with me, Li Xin, called The Youth Behind a COVID Vaccine, coming to you from the production grounds of CoronaVac Life Sciences, some 30 kilometers south of Beijing. Joining me today are Wang Ling, Viral Vaccine R&D Director, Lian Xiaojuan, Deputy General Manager of Production, and Cui Guoliang, Deputy General Manager of Quality. Welcome to The Point. Let's start with a self-introduction first. Ms. Wang, why don't we start with you?
Hello, my name is Wang Lin. I'm the Director of Viral Vaccine R&D at CoronaVac Life Sciences. My job is to conduct the preclinical research in the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. Specifically, I work on the isolation and identification of virus strains, process research of virus culture and virus inactivation, and evaluation of cross-protection of vaccines.
How many people are there altogether in your team?
We have an R&D team of over 100 people.
Let me turn to you, Ms. Lian. Tell us a bit about yourself and the team that you're leading.
Hello everyone, I'm Lian Xiaojuan, Head of Production Management at Beijing CoronaVac Life Sciences Company Limited. I'm mainly responsible for the production of inactivated COVID-19 vaccines. More specifically, my work includes purchasing of raw materials, bulk vaccine production, formulation, filling, packaging, and business logistics.
How many people are there in your team in all the different steps of production?
At present, there are around 2,000 people.
Mr. Cui, tell us a bit about yourself and the team that you're leading in terms of quality.
Hello, I am Cui Guoliang, the Head of Quality Control and Authorization at Beijing CoronaVac Life Sciences Company Limited. I am responsible for the development, design, and operation of the quality managing system of the entire company. Meanwhile, I am also in charge of quality authorization, responsible for signing the release forms for the materials used in the production process, intermediate products, and the finished products for distribution.
So you are the one who's in charge of giving the final stamp of approval before a vaccine leaves the production hall and goes onto the market.
It is not necessary for me to chop the stamp. According to the Good Manufacture Practice rules and related regulation, for the final product to be released, it is mandatory for me to sign the release form on behalf of the company. It provides more assurance regarding the product quality before it's ready for the market.
So all of the vaccine either exported to other parts of the world or used here in China has to be approved in terms of quality?
Yes.
How many people are there in your team?
I have nearly 300 people.
So if I understand correctly, what goes on is like this. You, Ms. Wang, you are leading a team in terms of the R&D of the vaccine, and then it goes to you, Ms. Lian, who is in charge of producing all the vaccine, and then before these vaccines are allowed to go onto the market or to use, your team has to prove that the quality is good. Before the show started, I asked you to prepare one object that can describe the kind of working experience over the past 2 years, let's say, since you started working on the vaccine. I would like to know which object you brought and what story you want to tell about it.
I have this small item, a rubber band. This is not the exact one I use. It's just a way of helping you understand what happened. When the epidemic was hitting us hard in early 2020, there was a shortage of medical supplies. We were particularly short of personal protective equipment during R&D, as most of the supplies went to medical personnel. As a result, gowns and masks were in extreme short supply. Our company uses resources worldwide to secure some gowns for us, but we didn't have the luxury to pick the right size, so many gears were way too big for us. It's manageable if the sleeves and trousers were too long, but if the hood was too big, it would block our vision. So every time before we went into the lab, we would pull up our hoods a little bit and use rubber bands to tie it up. We ended up looking like Teletubbies. We even took pictures of each other. These young people were very optimistic and able to find some fun while carrying out challenging work.
I think the common question people might ask, okay, you have passion, you have strengths, you have physical capability, but how about knowledge? How about, the kind of wisdom, let's say, you need, which only comes with age? Is a team with an average age of 28, is that enough?
The majority of our team members are indeed inexperienced, but we pair them with more experienced ones. In fact, young people nowadays are actually very strong in terms of their educational background, training, or skills. They come from many prestigious institutions across the country, even around the world, and they can introduce some advanced expertise and technology to our traditional vaccine research and development.
Are they all Chinese? How come you have over 100 people, you had over 100 people. How come you can find these 100 people like that? And I don't know, how long did it take to gather a team of 100?
The task force was not a temporary assembly of researchers in our company. It consisted of the backbones of different departments, including production, quality control, even logistics, rather than just members of the R&D department or team. The entire company was mobilized to build such a preclinical R&D task force.
What would you say would be the most difficult part in the process of the R&D?
Since we were developing an inactivated vaccine, I felt the inactivation process required the most caution and was the most challenging. You have to inactivate the virus completely, but you can't overdo it. So there's a fine balance to strike in this process.
How did you overcome that?
Through numerous experiments, repeated experiments. Our past experiences also provided some guidance, a combination of different factors.
Okay, bravo. Okay, so that, Ms. Lien, what is the project that you prepared and what's the story behind it?
Mine is a photo of the moment when the first box of CoronaVac rolled off the production line. You can see our initial production and quality team. Very small management team, a souvenir of our happiest moment together.
Can I see it? Yeah, 谢谢. Okay, so this was you.
Yes.
This was you. Okay. Tell us the story behind the first box of CoronaVac.
The person in blue standing in the middle is Jiang Wei. He is in charge of the finished product, that is, the process from formulation to filling and packaging. On his right is me, and I'm mainly responsible for the management and operation of the whole production process. On my right is the manager of quality control, responsible for quality assurance and control. Next to him is Mr. Cui, the qualified person who is in charge of releasing products and the head of quality management. On the far side is Yao Zhidong, the production manager of the bulk of vaccine. He oversees the process where the bulk of vaccine goes from 0 to 1. That is to place and culture the virus inside a cell and produce the bulk, or the intermediate product with a high concentration of the inactivated virus through purification. I remember that at that time we chose the cleanest background for this photo, as all the construction and maintenance of the workshop was still in progress. We were right next to the production line.
旁边呢就是我们的生产线。
So basically, you were producing and expanding at the same time. How long did the whole process last?
其实应该是从去年2020年的3月。
The construction began in March 2020, and by May this year it's expected to reach a production capacity of 2 billion doses. During this period, we have to ensure the steady rollout of quality products while constantly expanding our capacity and increasing the output.
提升我们的产能，扩大我们的产量。
So how did that feel to be working in a construction site at the same time and then making sure that you have good product and against a deadline at the same time and working while hiring new people at the same time?
其实这个新冠疫苗的生产。
The production of CoronaVac has been unprecedented. It is different from all other vaccines available before. I think the difference lies in 3 aspects: safety, speed, and scale. In terms of safety, the inactivated COVID-19 vaccine has to be produced in workshops with a high biosafety level. In terms of speed, it generally takes 8 years for a vaccine to go from lab to market. During this period, a list of boxes must be ticked, including preclinical research, workshop construction, process validation, national level review, GMP compliance, and the production site inspection by national authorities. Corrective measures may need to be taken before all the review and inspection are passed. The production can begin only after the license is granted. However, CoronaVac completely broke this routine. In fact, the National Medical Products Administration and Drug Evaluation Authorities were supporting us behind the scenes. No matter how late or early we submitted documents to them, they would respond in less than 2 hours.
不超过2个小时就回复了。真的是非常感谢他们，否则。
So we're really grateful to them. Had it not been for the collaboration and integration of working styles by all those involved, we would never have achieved the speed and the scale of CoronaVac.
基本算是全人群接种的疫苗，也是全球需要的疫苗。
It is a vaccine for all age groups that is needed worldwide. The number of potential users could be 7 billion, so the demand is huge. Whether it is from the perspective of our corporate mission or our country's role as a major power, we must take on greater responsibilities. For CoronaVac to become truly accessible to all, production capacity must be scaled up. Words such as "you've worked hard" are too pale to describe my feelings during the process. It has really been a sense of mission to provide vaccines to help the human race eradicate disease that has been supporting and inspiring us.
这份初心一直在支撑着我们，在鼓舞着我们。
So you talk about a sense of mission, a sense of responsibility, to help the world tackle coronavirus. But what about the 2,000 people that you hire? How can you make sure that they also share the same kind of sense of mission?
我们从最初的100人，到3月份，大概就到达了2000多人的生产团队。
Our team went from having some 100 employees in the beginning to having a production team of more than 2,000 people in March. The hiring process touched us deeply. When we started from scratch, both the interviewers and HR managers needed to work during daytime. So interviews mostly took place after 6 p.m. Sometimes some colleagues even called up the HR at 2 a.m. to ask if they could conduct an interview. Similar stories abound. On the other hand, the interviewees also warmed our hearts. Sometimes, before we introduce ourselves in details, having simply said we were a COVID-19 vaccine producer, They already indicated their willingness to join us. They didn't care much about the specifics. They just wanted to join our team and contribute to the country and to the global endeavor of fighting against the pandemic. They were all very enthusiastic. The early rounds of interview were carried out online because of the ongoing pandemic. Regardless of the interview format, many of the interviewees had work experience. In fact, they were not fresh graduates, and they had 1 or 2 years of work experience after graduating from university. They took the interview very seriously. Even though they sat at home, they would dress in formal attire during the interview. For our part, no matter how tiring the work during the day was, we would give 100% of our energy during the interview.
在面试环节，我们都要展现出我们的风采。
You've been watching a special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, called The Youth Behind a COVID Vaccine. Stay with us. So finally, what is the object you brought and the story behind that object?
我带来的呢，是我们一个工作当中要。
It's a stamp that we use at work. It's used for releasing final products. As you know, in producing inactivated vaccines, we must not cross two bottom lines. One is biosafety and the other is product safety. What does this stamp mean? It means that when the high biosafety areas were first put into use during the early stages, the managers were on duty at night, as well as to ensure that any biosafety issues could be promptly handled from outside the areas 24 hours a day.
随时有情况，我们是有人在管理层在外面进行这个组织的。那我当时呢，就是
Once I went into the office around 2 a.m. to see how things were going. I passed the desk of a young man in our quality assurance department. At the time, everyone else already went home. He fell asleep on his desk with the stamp still clutched in his hand. At that time, I knew there was still one inspection item to be approved by the quality control sector for some materials, and it would take another half an hour. I tried to pull the stamp out. He woke up immediately and asked, "Who's touching my stamp?" I was rather taken aback.
当时还把我吓了一跳啊！我说你好好休息一会儿。
I said, "Go and take a good rest." He said no, adding that he needed to wait for the result from quality control because the next morning at 8:30, production workers would come to collect the materials. He wanted to stamp on the relevant release forms and put up the release labels the night before so that the release of these materials would have complied with all our standards.
符合我们的放心的标准了。可以从这个呢，我看
The story is very telling. It's not an isolated case. There are similar stories happening in our daily work. It's a microcosm of how we did things back then. And it's not only true for the control process of materials, but also true in the production process of the intermediate products and the finished products. The whole QA and QC team and our production team work together to ensure that the control parameters are followed in the management and implementation process.
相应的这种控制参数
对
来管理执行。
How many stamps does one dose need?
如果我们没有具体
We haven't counted how many stamps we need to use, but we can see that to produce a vaccine, we use dozens of raw materials alone. If you look at the number of batches we produce every day, there are more than 10 batches of finished products alone.
就有10多批，
Over 6 million doses
对，
on a
对。
daily basis.
这还
Yeah.
只是
This is just the finished product. Bulk and final bulk of vaccine and raw materials are also subject to the same quality control procedures.
So that little stamp actually affects the lives of hundreds of millions of people.
已经完成。
More than 100 million doses of our vaccine have already been administered in China. We have supplied almost 300 million doses to the rest of the world.
So there are over 40 countries which have already approved the use of CoronaVac. So this stamp carries a lot of weight. Yeah, how do you make sure that you don't stamp on the things you shouldn't? Meaning, you know, the quality has always to be 100% good.
其实保证参
I think there are several key ingredients in the secret sauce to ensuring product quality. The most important one is responsibility. If we look beyond responsibility, there is a complete flow of processes that underpins the production. And quality as a factor is embedded in process design. In designing the production process, our R&D team has attached great importance to quality.
这种质量底蕴。
Has there been any glitches that happened up to now?
因为我们这是工业化。
Mass production is different from lab research. In mass production, a large number of raw materials are needed for producing different batches of products. Sometimes there are moments of near misses. For example, when we inspected the raw materials, we suddenly found that one batch of materials couldn't meet our quality standards, so we couldn't release them for the next process. However, according to our production schedule, we may need to use the materials in just a few days. We want to prevent this type of risk. Generally speaking, we would purchase materials for multiple batches of products together so as to prevent the above incident from happening. As I said earlier, quality shall be secured by design, and risk shall be prevented by considering all possible scenarios.
的防范也是要提前进行预判的，保证我这生
It
产
can ensure that our production will not be interrupted due to the hiccup in supplying raw materials for one batch of vaccines. With our production kept on a stable footing, we can ensure a constant and stable supply of vaccines to the market.
So the theme of this show is about the May 4th spirit. Of course, it's about the spirit of young people. Now, 101 years later than after 1919, the circumstances are completely different. But what is May 4th spirit for you, for the team of R&D, for instance, after you?
我觉得五四精神，可能跟我们
I think the spirit of the May 4th movement is probably best reflected in our company's love for the country and the concern for the people. All the young people up and down in the company have a strong feeling of patriotism and concern for the people. We do not really see CoronaVac as a product, but as a tool to fight the pandemic, a means to eradicate the disease for the benefit of the human race. That's the spirit demonstrated in these young people. Sometimes I'm also surprised by their commitment. I think the May 4th spirit is also reflected in their confidence. They are much more confident than the people we met in the past. They have seen a lot around the world, and this pandemic has made them understand our country and our current situation even more clearly. So they love their country, care about their people, and are confident. At the same time, they are also optimistic. So I feel the spirit of the May 4th movement is still guiding us forward.
我也认为五四精神一直在延续着、持续着。
I also think that the spirit of the May 4th movement is always with us. Among more than 2,000 people that we hired, there are about 40 to 50 people who have returned from studying overseas. They are very competent. If there's anything stronger now than the traditional spirit of the May 4th movement, I think it may be the manifestation of their own values. I think it's about everyone contributing their part to the country and devoting their youth to fighting the pandemic. The world presents us with a very rare opportunity to make such a contribution. Now, most people we recruit are in their 20s. Their personal needs are different from people in their 30s. These young people are more eager to showcase their abilities, to prove themselves and their values to the world.
要让世界去证明自己的能力、实力、自己的价值。
What's the meaning of May 4th spirit for the 300 or so young people in your team?
100多年前，我们是抗击三座大
More than 100 years ago, we were fighting against the three mountains of imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucratic capitalism, so that the Chinese nation could stand up. But now we are fighting the coronavirus on behalf of all humankind. I think this is a more extensive version of the May 4th spirit, which has been updated and renewed. I believe the Chinese youths will be passing on and adding new meanings to this spirit as we did in the past 100 years.
一如既往的、不断的去延续、加深来走的。
Many thanks to my special guests today. They are Wang Ling, Viral Vaccine R&D Director of Sinovac, Lian Juan, Deputy General Manager Production, and Cui Guoliang, Deputy General Manager of Quality. And many thanks to you for having watched this edition of The Young People Behind China's Vaccines, a special edition of The Point with Li Lixin. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Lixin in Beijing. Thanks for watching. You've got the point.